Okay, so here we are in Module 2. What we're doing today is we're going to do some modifications on our part. Now, if you've done a lot with, or some with HSM or Inventor, you'll know that you can change the size of the part and all the other things that go along with it. So if you change the outside shape of the part, then the outside milling will change with it. If you change the size of the hole, then the drilling and tapping will change along with it. For the most part, it won't change tap sizes on its own. So today, when we're talking about Module 2, we're talking about modifying or modifications. We're going to change the outside shape of the part. We're going to change the thickness. We're going to add a chamfer around the outside of the part. We're also going to check our drill and tap depths, because I think last time our drill and tap depths were probably not right. Most of them were probably close, but I think that most of them were not quite the way that we want it to be. Now, on this part, we're going to have to do some creative modifying for this part. This isn't an outside of the box thinking on this. Lots of times we'll have a part where we may have made it for a long time, 1, 2, 3 inches on this part, and then now there's been a revision and we're going to make it 50, 60 thousandths larger, smaller, change the thickness of it, whatever it happens to be. So on this part, we want to go ahead and make our part smaller, and then we also don't want to go down as deep with it. So basically what I want to do is I want to take a piece of 1x2 aluminum stock, saw it to 3 inches long, and I want to go ahead and mill around that part while it's in the vise without destroying the part or the vise. So since this was drawn originally, and I'll show you the original drawing. So what we'll do is we'll go back to CAM, and we'll go to the model, and we'll go over into 3D model. We'll take our extrusion, and we'll look at our sketch itself here, and we can even go in and do it, edit the sketch. Since our part was not drawn with the middle of the box being the middle of the Cartesian coordinates, and it was drawn in the corner, if we change the size and shape of this, it's going to throw all of our holes off because they come off of these edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our CAM as it sits, and we'll be able to go ahead and make some of those changes, actually all those changes just right here in the CAM. So we'll go back here, and we've got CAM, so make sure you've got your CAM tab done, and this is the drawing that we did last time. So we are in our CAM, and we're going to go in and we're going to change the milling of the outside of it. We'll also add a chamfer, do some other work as we go around to this, and then we're going to change our depth as to how far we go with our face mill. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this thing around, and I'll go ahead and change the face off first. Go in and right click it and go in and edit, and I want to go here. I want to make sure that I'm not going to go too far down. Looks like I'm okay there. So that should be fine. We'll go ahead and go to our roughing tab. Right click again, edit. Now on this one, we're going to take our bottom, and we're going to go to the model, bottom. I want to go up about a quarter of an inch. I don't want it to go all the way down, all the way around this thing. Or maybe we can go, yeah, let's keep it a quarter of an inch. Okay. I'll go ahead and do that to my other one, my finishing pass. Go to the model, bottom, and go up a quarter of an inch. It's going to keep me from going all the way down. If my stock size is 1x2x3, it's not going to be able to make that. So what I want to do is I want to go back to my roughing. I've got all of my parts and components here from what I made last time. And what I want to do is I want to go in, and I had stock to leave already checked. And I want to do a couple of different things with it. I want to go ahead and make it undersized. So I want to go 52.5 thousandths undersized. Actually, let's go negative 115 thousandths undersize. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. This is my finishing tool. Stock to leave. And I'm going to go minus 0.125. So on the first one, I left 10 thousandths on there for my finished pass. Come around it. And now I can just run these two passes here. If I highlight this one with a left click, so anytime I want to highlight something, I just left click it. If I hit Control and then left click here again, I can go in and just do a post process. And my first program was called 1000. This one we'll just call 1001. We're just going to be playing with this one, so this one's not necessarily going to be one that we're going to save. So we'll just play around with 1001. This is just the outside of it. And as we're going through checking it to see if it's cutting the right size or shape or not, it's doing an automatic corner rounding. And let me pop back to the screen, and you can see it as it goes through. So what it's doing is, that's actually a good thing. That end mill's coming around through here and going to do a circular interpolation as it's interpolating down here in a straight line, and it's going to try and stay on there a little bit better. Problem with that is it makes it really hard to kind of visualize and see what the code is doing. So what we can do is go back into these, especially the finishing one. The finishing one will really tell us everything that we need to know. And go back in here, and we can make it actually do some sharp corners. So instead of roll around there, keep sharp corner. And so we can highlight both of those again and go ahead and go to simulate or post process. So I can go in there, post process, go ahead and just keep playing with that 1001. So I've got my roughing pass that's going to go run around it, and then my finished pass you see is tighter. It's got a square corner. So here's my finishing on the outside. I'm now going, let's see, x of minus 625, y 1.125, x then positive 625. Let's go back. Look at our part in the front, looks good. And if I want to go in and change this one back to make it cut square as well, instead of rolling around the corner, I can keep a sharp corner. See both of those. Post process, keep going with 1001. So it's still a little hard to read because of what's going on with some of these numbers. And so even though I can tell it's doing what I want, if I'm still not sure of what's going on, I can come in here and I can do it to one or both. Change this from in computer to in control. We talked a little bit about that last time. So this is now going to be using, when I put in control, it's going to turn cutter compensation on. This cutter compensation radius is just as it starts to roll into it. So in control is what I've changed to. It's going to allow me to be able to have some control out on the machine. And it's also going to allow me to just be able to see it better as I'm looking at it as I'm going through here. So here and here. Okay. So let's just look at the finish pass on it. And so for the code side of it, it is tool 3. So as I'm going through here, don't pay attention to that. Tool 2, that's just a standby tool. I'm going to come in, I'm going to go over to my part. Here's where I turn cutter compensation on. This is my D3, which matches my T3. That's just my feed rate. Coming across, I'm going to X of 1.375. And so what we said we wanted to be 1/8 of an inch. So the part 0, X0, Y0 is in the middle at that hole. So if this should be positive 1.5, this would be originally, and then this would be positive 1, and then this would be negative 1. So as I'm standing here, I'm on my finish pass, I'm going negative 1.375, then I'm going to negative 1.375, and then I'm going to X of 875, and then negative 875. So what that's telling me is I've got too much offset on it, so I need to cut it in half. Instead of going 1/8 of an inch, looks like I need to go 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to leave the drawing of the part there. I'm going to go back and do a quick edit here. And instead of 125, let's go minus 0.065. And then we'll do the same thing here. And we'll go minus 0.0525. Go back and left click and highlight both of these guys, and then we'll do a post process. All right, so again, coming in D3, turn the cutter comp on, 4375, 9375. That makes the whole thing 1/8 of an inch smaller all the way around. That takes care of bringing this thing into size. So now we can make this thing to size without having to change a bunch of other stuff on there. If the part's drawn right, if it's drawn from the center out, it would have not been a problem. But since we're having to deal with this, we're just going to have to make some adjustments as we go as to how it's drawn and then how we're working with it. So let's go back and take just a better look at what's going on in some of those changes. So as I'm going in and I'm looking at the roughing the outside of it, I can change a lot of stuff. I've already changed not only where or how deep I'm going to go with it by leaving some offset there. I've changed how I'm going to control it. So if I want to go back and I want to use the computer and let the computer do the changes and the offsets on it, then that's great. I can do that right here by just hitting computer. If I'm okay with the outside of it going in that round corner, which is really more efficient cutting, I can definitely do that. Come in here and do multi-depths or some rough passes around the outside of it if I want or need to. So here, this is telling me that my maximum step over could be 712 thousandths. It's pretty heavy for what we're talking about. So if we change that to something like 50 thousandths, and then say we can do as many step overs as we really need to. Or maybe even make that 1/8 you'll be able to see, and this smoothing deviation could be all the way up to 1,000, so that's not going to bother it at all. That's just how tightly it's going to tolerance as it goes around those edges and as it does the work around the outside. I can do multiple depth if I want to. Do not need to do it on this one. All right, so we should probably leave that one alone. So we'll flip it back around. So now we can see what we've got. If we need to take that many passes or not, probably not. So maybe 2 passes will be enough. And then let's go back and actually let's probably take one more pass off of that. Bring that down to 1. That looks a lot better. Now let's go back into our finished pass. Here we have the option to go ahead and use it as cutter compensation off or on. You can change the cornering radius as going into that. You can make it 1/8 of an inch if you want to. And so that's just how it's going to go in and out of it. Now you see it going into the cut because we've actually made the blocks smaller, or we made our cutting area smaller than what the original block size was. So if I want to watch that in simulation, I can just simulate that part. So it's cutting into it, and then it's going to roll out of there just so that it won't make as heavy of a mark as it goes around there. Let's flip this thing back over. Let's look at the front side. Okay. So we went ahead and changed the outside of the part, but as we do this, now we've got to kind of remember some of those things. So we've got the outside shape taken care of. We've got the thickness taken care of, but we haven't added a chamfer to it. Adding a chamfer to it is really going to be easy to do. We'll go back to the drawing. We'll come back and forth with it. There's a couple of different ways we can do it. This is probably the easiest, but we do have to remember that we have taken off some of the outside of the stock, so we're going to have to make some adjustments there. And then we'll check our drill and tap depths on there. So if I want to add a chamfer to it, then I can come back in here. I can take my part, roll it around. I'll go back to my model, go into my sketch, and I can edit that sketch and put a chamfer in there. I can also come in while I'm still, let's see, in my cam here, and then if I want to do some work here, I can do it here, but probably let's just come here while we've got our model already drawn. We'll take our chamfer and we'll do a 50 thousandths chamfer here. I'm going to keep left clicking and I'm going to hold control, get all 4 corners, and I'm going to do a 50 thousandths chamfer. Click OK, and now you can see the top edge of this thing is chamfered all the way around it. So in doing that, first of all, you can see all of my machining that I've done up to this point. By going back and forth, I've changed the generation on it, so I need to go back in and do a regeneration on it, or just generate those. So I go here with setup 1 highlighted, right click, and I can generate the toolpath. That's just going to set them all back. Anytime you're going back and forth through there, you're going to have to go back and just regenerate those. And I usually just regenerate all of them unless I've got just 30 or 40 tools, then I'll just do the ones that I need to. So I've got my chamfer created on my part, and so a couple different ways that you can start this next operation. You can go in and click back to the cam tab, and you can go in and do a 2D milling operation. I like to just click with the mouse, so I'm going to right click with the mouse, new operation, 2D milling, and I'm going to do a 2D contour. I'm going to change my tool, and I want to use my spot drill. So I've got my spot drill here, I'm just going to select it, and I'm going to come in. I'm going to figure out what I want to cut. So I want to cut this outside shape. And so it recognizes this as a feature. So there it's cut it. And while I'm here, I'll make sure I'm cutting the right direction. Cutter on the left-hand side, this arrow is telling me the way that I'm going to go. So I'm going to go around the outside of the part as per usual, staying with our cutter on the left-hand side. And so I can click OK. And I can see that it generated it, and I want to go ahead and just jump back in there and show a couple things. When you chamfer with a spot drill like that, it's going to go ahead and click on the chamfering there, right here. And since our tool has a point to it, we're going to go ahead and do the chamfer tip offset, just so that we can, when we're cutting the edge. So here's the chamfer. I don't want the tool to be right on the edge. I want it to ride down just a little bit so that it can clear that, so I don't end up with a little flat spot there or a burr or some type of an edge. So I can go ahead and do an offset on that. Say maybe 50 thousandths. And so if I go ahead and generate it now, and let's do this. Let's go ahead and just run the roughing, the finishing, and then the contouring. And again, to do that, I'm just going to click on them with the left mouse button click and hold control, and then I can simulate that. And so if I single block through it, come through there, and if you will notice, or remember our other part, the outside milling of this has been already changed to take stock off and make it just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and say it, to take an extra 60 thousandths per side off of it. So this is not going to be really the way that we want to do it. It would leave no chamfer there because there's no offset. So let's go ahead and go back in, and we'll still have those three things simulated. And let's do just a little bit. Whoop. All right. Okay, so there's the first cut, second cut. Now, our chamfer is probably, gosh, it looks like it's going to be good like that. Let's go ahead and leave it, and we can always come back in and make it smaller. And actually, I guess we can go ahead and simulate it now. The only reason that we're not seeing this top part look good, we can go back in and change it. We'll highlight the face off, the roughing, the finishing, and the contour there. So we can simulate that. Get our face milling, grip around the outside of it, finish the outside of it. it looks like it's cutting it okay. Coming out of there. Rotate that back. Come back up like this. This now shows us the top of the part. You start to kind of see some of those features that are being removed as it simulates. That's why it starts to show that chamfer, and you can actually see those holes starting to form in there, even though we haven't actually cut them yet. So if I want to go ahead and run the entire thing through, I just go up and click on my setup, hit simulate, and I can do all the way through if I want to. Oh, let me go back. Change that stock, turn that stock off. Gonna need a little bit of time for this computer to catch back up. It's not going to simulate as well as it needs to for this particular computer. It's having a little bit of problems in simulation. So I can simulate one thing at a time for the most part, but I definitely can't simulate all of it at the same time. Alright, let me pop this thing back up. Anytime that we're working with a lot of graphic issues, we run into some of these challenges. Alright, so that's our part back up on there. So that's a great reason why we want to save often. Okay, that's our whole part. Let's go back in and look at our roughing. Yep, that looks good. That is in computer. And here, let's say we've got 2 roughing passes on the outside. This is in control, so that's going to be cutter compensation. It is going to go through, leave 60 thousandths on it. And if we want to make sharp corner, we can. It's not going to make any difference either way. We can do that just to have something different, though, if we want to. Okay, so we've got that. We've got our chamfer around the outside of it. Now, we want to go ahead and just do a quick save again. Now we need to come in, and even though we're only going to mill down, we're going to leave a 1/4 inch in the vise. We want to make sure that we're drilling and tapping through on all of our parts. So all we have to do, spot drill, good to go. This 25/64 drill let's go ahead and open it up. And so what we want to do there is just double click on there. Look at the depths here, whole bottom. Let's change everything to a 1/2 inch below. So we're going to go make the whole bottom is a 1/2 inch below. So what we're seeing is that it's going to go down through there. If we want to, we could change it to the model's bottom. That's pretty deep to go underneath there for the bottom of the model. So on this one it'd be the same for the whole bottom or the model bottom. It's going to go a 1/2 inch down below it. And so leave it at the whole, or you can leave it at the model. I run at the model's bottom a lot. And so we can leave it there, or you can change it. So I want to make sure that we're going through every one of those. Each one, make sure it goes down deep enough. This flat end mill, that shouldn't have any problem. Go into this one. Here we go to the, if I want to do the model, and we'll go, or 500 thousandths, I think is what I said, negative. Way deep through there. Tap, same thing. And 1/2 inch deep is pretty excessive. You probably want to kind of fine tune that a little bit. But that's going to make sure we get all the way through there. Our U-drill and then our reamer is the only thing that we have left. So just our different planes. Go to the bottom of the model. Thousandths. And again, 500 thousandths. Okay, so there, I'll go ahead and take my part, and let's get back to the front. And give it just a little bit of isometric view so I can see everything that's happening. Go in and simulate this. So everything from here looks pretty good. I've now came through and I've checked all of my drill and tap depths on there. I've got my chamfer running around the outside. Drilling my through holes for my counterbores now. And if you watch down at the bottom as that cursor is going across there, you'll kind of see it's broken up into different parts. Those are all the different operations that we have. So if I want to now, if I didn't want that chamfer to happen at the very end, I can change it. I can move it around. So I'll close this out. And so Tool 4 is already ran previously. So if I want to move it, I can just take and move it up here, which makes more sense. So I'm running now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we know that we don't always run tools just that way, but in here I think we can get away with doing that. So if I want to rename this, I can left click it and then left click it again. And then that's going to be, I'm just going to call this chamfer outside. And we may have to come in still. I'm not 100% satisfied that we won't have to come in and do some changes to that. I won't be surprised to see us come in and make this change to it. To come in and do an offset for stock to leave. And actually what would happen if we just did that now and did a minus 62.5 thousandths. I'm going to hit OK on that. I'm also going to hit save again. And I want to go ahead and run tools 1, 2, 3, and 4 just on the outside of it. And I will simulate that. There, I'm going around the outside of it. Let's grab that, just that chamfering at the outside. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's go back in, take a look at that. So the problem is we have no machining to it. So we're going to come back in, and problem must be here with stock to leave. Let's see what it looks like now. Now it's got it. So we must be okay. So we'll go ahead and minimize that. Run 1, 2, 3, and 4 again. Go around the outside of it. Two roughing passes, one finish pass. Okay, so that was pretty good. The only thing that I might think about changing is the way that my face mill runs. I could change around some of the way that it leads in and leads out. I can also change the way that it transitions. It doesn't have to extend to beyond, and it doesn't have to go away from it. So you can do a lot of different things here with that tool. That's just our 2-inch face mill. Those are all of our planes. And here's how we're going to do our step over and then our direction. How we want to cause it to mill. We can either climb cut with a conventional mill or both ways. I let it go both ways because we're cutting on just the bottom. So I'm not really worried about that. And I'm not going to leave any stock to it, and I'm not going to do multiple depths because we're only going in 50 thousandths with it. But I think that for the most part on this part is going to be okay, but it's probably not my favorite scenario as far as it goes across because it's really not coming in exactly where I want it to be. I would probably modify that just a little bit more as I went, but I think it'll be okay for what we've got. We'll probably come back and find ourselves doing some modifications to this as we go. So what we have here is taking care of checking all the boxes off of this, the outside shape, the thickness, the adding the chamfers, the drilling and tapping depths are good. So I want you to make sure that if you haven't already done multiple saves, that you'll go ahead and save this one, and that you can have that one ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and do a separate video on creating and modifying posts. So I want you to go ahead and save this one, and what I want to do is I want you to come in and do a save as, and then put it into your file, and I'm just going to save it with a different name. I'm just going to call it Module 2. And remember, this will have to be submitted that same week. So during the week you have 2 modules to do every week. So we're just going to save it as Module 2. And then I will also post a separate video on creating and modifying your posts. I'll use this same drawing, this same part, and we'll get ourselves just a little bit better post that looks just a little bit sharper. So I'll have that one up shortly.